Forget those boring fiberglass boxes you see at every campground. What if I told you there are homes on the road right now that look completely illegal? Today we are exposing the 10 most bizarre, mind-bending, and downright shocking campers that actually exist. We are talking about absolute madness on wheels, from a crazy 1970s muscle car smashed together with a camper shell to a literal retro-futuristic spaceship that you steer from the roof. You will not believe your eyes, and I promise you, the unbelievable vehicle at number 10 will completely shatter your reality. You absolutely must watch until the end of the video to see it. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, leave a comment below right now, turn on notifications, then let us hit the road. Imagine cruising down the highway in the 1970s. You look in your rearview mirror and see the aggressive front grille of a Chevy El Camino muscle car rapidly approaching. But as it passes by, your jaw drops. Strapped directly into the bed of this sleek, low-slung utility coupe is a full-blown camper shell, looking like a giant fiberglass snail shell clinging to a rocket. This is the Trav L-Mate, a bizarre and beautiful collision between high-octane muscle and weekend family camping. It is a visual paradox that absolutely should not work, yet somehow looks incredibly cool. The 1970s was a wild era for automotive experimentation. The El Camino, half car and half truck, was already a niche vehicle, but companies like Trav L-Mate saw an untapped market. The adventurous bachelor who wanted the speed of a car during the week but a place to sleep on the weekends. Designing a camper for the El Camino was an engineering nightmare. They had to account for the car's unique curves, sloped cabin roof, and distinct weight distribution. They molded the fiberglass to perfectly hug the lines, creating a custom fit that was aerodynamic and downright weird. Stepping, or rather crawling, into the Trav L-Mate is like entering a groovy time capsule. Space is unbelievably tight. You get a cozy bed situated over the cab, some modest wood-paneled cabinetry, and maybe enough room to make a quick sandwich. There is no standing up and certainly no luxury bathroom. It is cramped, quirky, and smells faintly of vintage vinyl and gasoline, but the vibe is unbeatable. You are not just camping, you are making a statement. However, if you think squeezing a camper into a muscle car is wild, wait until you see our next vehicle. At first glance, the Lance 650 looks like a standard, high-quality truck camper, but the real shock comes when you realize what it is sitting on. Unlike massive hulking campers that require heavy-duty, one-ton dually trucks to haul them around, the Lance 650 is perched effortlessly in the bed of a standard half-ton pickup truck like a Ford F-150. It looks like an optical illusion. How can something that looks so substantial, so packed with features, not immediately crush the suspension of a daily driver truck? It defies the visual logic of weight and payload entirely. The story of the Lance 650 is a masterclass in modern lightweight engineering. For decades, the rule was simple. If you want a hard-sided camper with a bathroom, you need a massive truck. Lance decided to break that rule. They engineered the 650 specifically for half-ton trucks with short beds. To achieve this, they had to obsess over every single ounce. They utilized advanced aluminum framing, lightweight plywood, and state-of-the-art composite materials. The result is a fully functional camper that tips the scales at around 2,000 pounds, fully loaded with all your gear and water. Inside, the Lance 650 completely shatters the illusion of its small footprint. It does not feel like a compromise. You are greeted by a surprisingly spacious layout featuring a comfortable queen-size bed, a fully equipped galley kitchen, a dinette, and incredibly, a wet bath with a toilet and shower. The modern aesthetics, large windows, and clever storage make it feel like a luxury studio apartment. It is cozy, highly functional, and brilliantly designed. But while the Lance is a modern marvel of efficiency, our next vehicle takes us to a bizarre, corrugated French van from the past. If you spot a Citroën HY camper on the road, your first thought might be that a corrugated farm shed somehow sprouted wheels and drove away. With its unmistakable protruding pig snout front end, totally flat windshield, and body panels made entirely of ribbed sheet metal, It is arguably the strangest-looking van ever produced. It looks less like a vehicle and more like a piece of industrial hardware repurposed by a bohemian artist. The aesthetic is so raw, aggressively unaerodynamic, and deeply French that it forces a smile out of anyone who sees it trundling along. Introduced shortly after World War II in 1947, the Citroën HY was born out of pure necessity. France needed a cheap, reliable, and incredibly utilitarian delivery vehicle. The brilliant engineers at Citroën decided to use corrugated metal because it added immense structural strength without adding heavy steel framing. They also gave it a front-wheel drive layout, which was revolutionary for a commercial van at the time. This allowed the rear cargo floor to be incredibly low and completely flat, making it an absolute dream for camper conversions. It was built to carry anything, anywhere, with maximum reliability. To travel in an HY camper is to embrace the slow, rustic charm of vintage European van life. The engine is loud, the suspension is bouncy, and the top speed is a laughable 55 miles per hour. But inside, it transforms into a cozy romantic cottage on wheels. The square dimensions allow for excellent space utilization, often fitted with rustic wood interiors, small gas stoves, and folding beds. It is not about getting to the destination quickly, it is about enjoying the quirky journey. Speaking of journeys, our next vehicle attempted to bring European aerodynamics to America. The Winnebago Lasharo looks like a tiny spaceship that crash-landed in an RV park in 1983. In an era where American motorhomes were giant, square, gas-guzzling living rooms on wheels, the Lasharo pulled up looking like a sleek, aerodynamic wedge of cheese. It sat bizarrely low to the ground, featured massive, slanted front windows, and had a footprint barely larger than a family station wagon. To the American consumer accustomed to massive V8 engines and sprawling interiors, the Lasharo looked incredibly strange, futuristic, and frankly a little confusing. It was trying to be a sports RV. The Lasharo was Winnebago's desperate response to the fuel crises of the era. They needed a highly fuel-efficient motorhome, but American chassis were far too heavy. So, in a wild move, they partnered with the French automaker Renault. They took a front-wheel drive Renault traffic van chassis, complete with its tiny four-cylinder engine, and built a lightweight fiberglass body over it. It was a radical experiment. While it achieved an impressive 22 miles per gallon, the tiny French engine struggled mightily against American highway speeds, rarely pushing past 65 miles per hour, earning it a reputation for being tragically underpowered. Stepping into the Lasharo feels like stepping into a well-designed 1980s European apartment. Because of the front-wheel drive, the floor is low, allowing for full standing headroom in a tiny package. The space is utilized with precision, featuring a rear dinette that converts into a bed, a compact galley, and an ingenious pull-out bathroom that expands into the hallway when needed. It is undeniably cozy and brilliantly packaged, bathed in the distinct tan color palettes of the 80s. But if you think a French-American hybrid is odd, wait until you see an Airstream that ditched its iconic silver shine. Seeing an Airstream Argosy motorhome is a confusing experience for the brain. We are all conditioned to recognize the iconic, gleaming, bare aluminum silver bullet shape of an Airstream. But the Argosy is painted, usually in a creamy beige with bold retro striping down the side. Furthermore, it is not a trailer. It is a fully motorized RV built on a heavy chassis, featuring bizarre, massive wraparound panoramic windows at the front. It looks like an Airstream that was abducted by the 1970s and forced to wear a disguise. It is gorgeous, strange, and entirely contradictory to expectations. We are halfway through our list of the weirdest campers ever built. Which one has been your absolute favorite so far? The muscle car camper or the weird French van? Drop a comment down below right now because the second half of this list is going to blow your mind. The Argosy line was born in the 1970s as Airstream's experimental brand. While Airstream trailers used pure aluminum, the motorized Argosy utilized heavy galvanized steel for its front and rear end caps. They needed the massive structural strength of steel to support those incredible panoramic wraparound cockpit windows safely. Because steel cannot be polished to match the aluminum side panels, Airstream had to paint the entire vehicle to make it look uniform. Driving the Argosy motorhome feels like piloting an incredibly stylish vintage submarine. Those wraparound front windows offer a field of vision that is unmatched, flooding the cockpit with the natural light. The interior is pure luxury, often featuring plush carpeting, curved wooden cabinetry, and vibrant upholstery. It is spacious, well-built, and oozes a retro-cool vibe that modern boxes just cannot replicate. From this painted American classic, we pivot back to Europe for a boxy delivery van. The Peugeot J7 camper looks exactly like a giant metal loaf of bread on wheels. It is unapologetically square, tall, and utterly devoid of any aerodynamic styling. But the real shock comes when the driver wants to get out. Instead of the doors swinging open like a normal vehicle, the massive front driver and passenger doors slide backward, parallel to the body, completely exposing the cabin. It looks like a city delivery truck from a quirky French movie that somehow got lost in the woods and decided to become a home. It is delightfully weird and entirely functional. Built from 1965 to 1980, the Peugeot J7 was the absolute workhorse of France. It was designed with a forward control layout, meaning the driver sits almost directly over the front wheels, right on top of the engine. This engineering choice maximized the rear cargo space, making it a perfectly square, cavernous box. The sliding front doors were engineered so delivery drivers could drive with the doors locked open in hot weather or hop out instantly in tight Parisian streets. Camper conversion companies quickly realized this massive empty square box was the perfect canvas for a tiny home. Inside, the J7 is surprisingly cavernous. Because the walls are almost perfectly vertical, you do not lose any space to curved roofs or slanted sides. It feels remarkably like a small sunlit studio apartment. Conversions often feature wide beds, full kitchen counters, and plenty of headroom. Driving it, however, is a chaotic experience. You sit high up, wrestling a massive horizontal steering wheel, with a noisy engine roaring right between your seats as you struggle to reach 60 miles per hour. It is visceral and raw. But if the J7 is square, our next camper is a sleek tube. When a Bolus road chief rolls into a campground, it completely stops traffic. It does not look like a camper. It looks like a gleaming riveted aluminum torpedo or a piece of a 1930s Zeppelin that fell from the sky. It is incredibly long, impossibly low to the ground, and tapers perfectly into a sharp aerodynamic tail. The front door is actually located at the extreme rear tip of the trailer, completely breaking all normal RV design rules. It is a stunning, rolling piece of Art Deco jewelry that looks both antique and incredibly futuristic at once. Here is the mind-blowing truth. The Bolus Road Chief is the granddaddy of them all. Designed in 1934 by Holly Bolus, the aircraft engineer who built Charles Lindbergh's famous plane, the Spirit of St. Louis. Bolus took his knowledge of lightweight aviation engineering and applied it to a travel trailer. He used a tubular aluminum space frame clad in riveted duralumin, creating a trailer that was unbelievably light and aerodynamic. It actually predates the Airstream. The Road Chief is an uncompromising masterpiece of aviation engineering applied to the open road, weighing a mere 2,500 pounds. Stepping through the bizarre rear tail door, you are transported into a luxury yacht from the 1930s. The walls are warm birchwood, the craftsmanship is nautical and unbelievably precise. Because of the tapered design, the space feels intimate and incredibly cozy. It features a stunning galley, a dedicated bedroom area, and ingenious storage solutions tucked into every curve. It is the absolute pinnacle of vintage glamping, dripping with history and exclusivity. But while the Bolus is all about lightweight aerodynamics, our next vehicle is a heavyweight behemoth born directly from a heavy-duty yellow school bus. The Bluebird Wanderlodge commands absolute respect on the highway. It is massive, imposing, and built like a literal tank. At first glance, it looks like a heavy-duty school bus or a city transit bus, but covered in custom paint jobs, chrome accents, and massive awnings. There is no cheap fiberglass here. This is thousands of pounds of riveted steel. When parked next to a standard modern RV, the Wanderlodge looks like it could drive right through it without getting a single scratch. It is the ultimate expression of indestructible, heavy-duty American excess, rolling on enormous wheels. In 1963, the Bluebird Body Company, famous for building indestructible steel school buses, had a wild idea. What if they took their heavy-duty commercial bus chassis, complete with massive diesel engines and air brakes, and built a luxury motorhome inside it? The Wanderlodge was born. It was engineered not for the casual weekend camper, but for millionaires, country musicians, and executives who wanted a fortress on wheels. It was built to standards far exceeding any normal vehicle, utilizing commercial-grade wiring, heavy steel framing, and industrial-strength plumbing. It was a millionaire's mansion built inside a school bus shell. Entering a vintage Wanderlodge is like walking into an opulent 1980s penthouse suite. It is incredibly heavy. The cabinets are solid hardwood, the counters are thick Corian, and there are mirrors, plush carpets, and brass fixtures everywhere. It does not shake or rattle when you walk inside. It feels planted firmly like a concrete building, often weighing over 30,000 pounds. Driving it feels like captaining a commercial ship, commanding immense diesel power and air ride comfort on the highway. It is unadulterated luxury, but our next vehicle takes that luxury, lowers it, and puts the engine out back. The FMC 2900R is a vehicle that commands immediate curiosity. It does not look like a standard boxy motorhome. It looks more like a sleek armored personnel carrier mixed with a luxury city bus. It sits incredibly low to the ground, has a wide, aggressive stance, and features a distinctive sloping front fascia with quad headlights. It exudes an aura of 1970s premium exclusivity. When you see one, you instinctively know that whoever is driving it is someone important, or at least someone with incredibly rare taste in vintage recreational vehicles and deep pockets. FMC, the Food Machinery Corporation, was a massive defense contractor famous for building military vehicles like the Bradley fighting vehicle. In the early 1970s, they decided to pivot and build the ultimate luxury motorhome. The engineering was revolutionary. Unlike other motorhomes built on front-engine truck chassis, FMC put a massive Chrysler 440 cubic-inch V8 engine in the rear. They gave it a custom-built chassis with four-wheel independent suspension. This meant the floor was entirely flat, the cabin was whisper-quiet, and the ride quality rivaled high-end luxury sedans of the era. The FMC was the vehicle of choice for the absolute elite. Celebrities like Clint Eastwood, James Brolin, and legendary racing driver Mario Andretti own them to travel at highway speeds in total comfort. Inside, it is a symphony of 1970s high-end design featuring wraparound lounge seating, custom fabrics, and a cockpit that looks like a private jet. Because of the independent suspension, traveling in the FMC feels like floating on a cloud, isolated from the road below. But as amazing as it is, nothing can prepare you for the absolute insanity of our final vehicle. Brace yourself because the deco liner absolutely shatters reality. It looks like a spaceship designed in the 1930s for the comic book hero Flash Gordon. It is a gleaming, handcrafted masterpiece of polished aluminum, featuring massive sweeping teardrop fenders, porthole windows, and a design that is entirely retro-futuristic. But the most jaw-dropping, mind-bending shock of all? There is a steering wheel on the roof. Yes, an open-air flying bridge up top where the driver can sit completely exposed to the wind, steering this metal leviathan down the highway from the roof. It is pure, unadulterated madness on wheels. The deco liner is not a factory production model. It is the mad genius creation of master fabricator Randy Grubb. He started with the chassis and front-wheel drive powertrain of a 1973 GMC motorhome and painstakingly hand-formed every single piece of aluminum bodywork over thousands of hours. Because it utilizes a front-wheel drive layout, the rear floor is incredibly low, allowing Grubb to build a custom garage in the back that holds a matching retro futuristic scooter. But the true engineering marvel is the complex mechanical linkage that connects the ground floor cockpit to the exposed flying bridge on the roof. This allows the driver to seamlessly transition from driving inside to captaining the ship from the top at 60 miles per hour. The interior of the deco liner is just as breathtaking as the exterior, featuring beautiful teak wood that evokes the feeling of a vintage Chris Craft boat. But the true vibe is experienced from the roof. Driving the deco liner from the flying bridge, wind in your hair, looking down at the shocked faces of everyone you pass, is an experience unlike anything else. It is rolling, functional art, proving that human imagination has absolutely no limits whatsoever. From muscle car mashups to French tin cans and finally a retro-futuristic spaceship you drive from the roof, these 10 bizarre campers prove that human creativity knows absolutely no bounds. The open road has never looked so weird. Which of these crazy vehicles would you choose for your ultimate cross-country road trip? Let me know down in the comments below right now. If you enjoyed this wild ride, hit that like button, subscribe for more crazy automotive content, and I will see you in the next one.